these three things are pieces of the puzzle, and they all work together for
Right.
a reason.
Mhm.
So, like, say you made it to step 3 and you have your own garden and everything. Well, what happens when something isn't produced? A storm comes in, takes it out. Well, that's what step 1 was for, the prepping.
Right.
We've handed over our food security to someone else, and they're here to help you take it back. It's the Farm2Table Direct Show with Ryan and Keith.
The second thing that you can do, all right, and that is farmers markets, CSAs, and shopping guides we're going to get into.
Right.
So let's, I think, bro, you had an article on some good news, actually.
Right. Actually, it's some good news from the Good News Network.
Well,
Good
what
news,
else would you expect?
Right. GoodNewsNetwork.org. Imagine if they had bad news.
Bad news on Good News Network. Yeah.
I don't know. They ought to try it one time to see what happens. Crash the internet.
World of negativity.
Right. But anyway, Good News Network, July 4th, hey, Independence Day, Andy Corbley posted an article on their website, goodnews.org. It says, farmers markets thriving since pandemic as shoppers and vendors form unbreakable ritual. And one thing he's talking about, the number of farmers markets in the U.S. is increasing.
Right.
Which is a huge deal. And I know I've observed just driving around, and doing what I do, at least a half a dozen in our area that weren't here a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They weren't around. There was like one, and now they're popping up in all these little towns, and whether it's every other week or every week, and some have multiple locations, but I mean, they're happening. Now, what they're saying is, now, I know this is a big stretch in time, but they're saying that 30 years ago, there were fewer than 2,000 open farmers markets in the United States.
Okay. Just 2 years ago.
No, 30 years ago.
Oh, 30 years ago.
But I mean, so it's a big stretch of time. But what they're saying is now there's more than 8,600 markets currently registered in the USDA Farmer Market Directory, and that's per the Farmer Market Coalition. Now, I will say this, there's probably more than that, because we know there's a lot of people who won't register that kind of thing. They won't share that information.
Right.
But anyway, it's, and even in, this is their words, lockdown heavy cities like Chicago, the Green City Market on Saturdays has grown from 5,000 to 10,000 shoppers pre-pandemic to 8,000 to 15,000 today.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a huge
jump.
Right. Now here's the benefit to shopping at a farmer's market. It's directly from the farm, and so they're not going to see the same type of supply chain issues that grocery stores have.
Exactly.
Bingo.
That's what I was going to contribute. One of the reasons is that everybody kind of, or not everybody, but you see this vast, large amount of people that has woken up to how fragile that supply chain is.
Right. And I'll say, they've seen it, the supply issue, they've seen where that is. And I mean, there is some people who generally, they're going there because they want fresher food. It's more direct. It's less, Now, one of the things that this person, that was being quoted, this Choi, I don't know, anybody told him, seen the cost of eggs at a grocery store increase, but then the price of our eggs at market stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not seeing the inflationary
now,
flux.
it seems like I am seeing some of it. Some places that.
Yeah, I think it depends on where it's at and who's selling it, but it's definitely a lot slower.
Right.
But yeah, it's and it's continued. Yeah, and it's continued to to just grow. And it's some of the safest places to buy food. So I mean, it's like it's grown local, and most of the time you can talk to the grower. Most of the time they're the ones selling. So they can give you
or
the
their
information.
Family members or friends.
And I mean, when you think about that, that is outside of and we'll get into growing it yourself, but it's one of the most direct ways that you can go get fresh vegetables, fresh things like that. And the farmers markets I've been to, there is literally such a wide variety of things you can buy. I mean, from jelly to squash to eggs to, tomatoes.
Right.
And a lot of them, if they've got a page or something like that, and there's something coming in that maybe hasn't been there, they'll announce it. They'll let people know that thing's coming. So, I mean, that is really one of the most direct ways that you can save money. And Look around in your area, folks. They're going to be popping up if they haven't already. I mean, we've got towns that are measured in the hundreds of population that are putting on farmers markets.
Right.
You know,
And
so-
that's incredible.
Right. Much less, you know, a bigger city of 90,000, 100,000 or more
Yeah.
where they have these massive markets. But I mean,
Right.
small towns are starting to embrace this, you know, this idea that, hey, let's get these people together where people can go. And it's breaking that dependence upon the box store. I mean, you may still need to go there, but you have options, you have choices, you know, and I mean,
Right.
so,
So let me see if you follow this line of reasoning.
okay.
Okay. With everything that we see going on around the world that seems to be an intentional attack on our food supply chain,
Right.
and the solutions that they're coming up with to feed the billions of people on the planet, and they're coming up with more ways to do processed food, right?
I hear it's
And-
about a slurry.
Right. Yeah, that's what
You
I
already
was
are.
gonna say.
He's on to me.
I'm on.
And
So-
that would contribute.
So if they're doing slurry or they're doing any kind of processed foods, you know, we've
Right.
heard that for years, that processed foods, you should stay away from it.
Right.
Right, because of the additives and all the
Right.
different
And we're still
parts and
hearing.
pieces that they're putting in it.
Right.
And so we're lacking nutrients in our
Right.
food. These are not nutrient dense foods by and large,
Oh, no.
and they're robbing us of those nutrients that we really need. And so, in line with the farmers markets,
Mhm.
these foods most likely are extremely nutrient dense.
Oh, yeah.
And let me also mention that they're probably, even though they're not the fastest way for a person to prepare, we just mentioned the fastest way.
Right.
Right.
It's the second fastest way because people have already produced it, and you can go down in there
Right.
and you
Oh,
can,
yeah.
you can do that.
You can
right?
buy it direct. You didn't have to go dig up the soil or, you know, build
Right.
anything. You're just going to buy it from somebody who did.
Right.
You know, they're, you know, it's a win. It's the capitalist system at its best. That,
Right.
You know, they grew it. Or, you know, went through the process, went through all the work. It's worth the price.
Right.
But you're getting fresher stuff. I mean, you're getting stuff that hasn't been sent through a plant or warehouse that's had chemicals sprayed on it to preserve it,
Right.
put on a truck, transported across who knows how many miles into another warehouse, and from that warehouse to the grocery store to the shelf. And by the time you get it, it's almost at the end of its life, you know. And I mean, you go in there, I mean, I know you walk into any of those stores, you look at a squash or a tomato, it's got this waxy look to it, right? It doesn't look the same as one that you go find at a farmer's market. Well, it's because it's been treated with stuff to make it last.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, if you can buy direct, you know, I was driving down the road last night, coming back from our homestead property, right? And there was a person on the side of the road selling squash.
Right.
I wish he'd have had a bigger sign. I would have seen it faster. I could have stopped, but I couldn't, and I had place to be, so I didn't turn around. But I mean, even just roadside people. The other day, corn in the bed of a pickup truck, you know, and it was some pretty good corn, I will tell you that. So that's what I'm saying. It's out there, and the farmers markets and the individual farm stands, that type of thing, you know, are just such a vital, important role in shortening that supply line, shortening that distance to your
Right.
food, and you know, and more information. You know, and I don't know if y'all got anything more about
Well,
farmers markets directly.
You know, I just wanted to briefly say that, you know, one of my points, I don't know if I hit it properly or not, but one of my points is that we may be forced into buying processed foods. And I think that's the angle,
right?
to make wholesome foods so expensive and then regulate them out so
Right.
that we don't have a choice to go into the processed foods.
Right.
So this just doubles down in my mind the need and
Right.
the reasoning why we should shorten our food supply
Right.
chain.
And you know, and you're supporting your local farmer.
Yeah.
And
Even if you have to pay more.
right. Well, right. You're supporting him, which is going to keep him in business,
Yeah,
which is going to keep your
that's-
food.
That's the point I was going to point out is, when you support these people, they have more power in order to still maintain
Right.
what they're doing and fight against the system.
Right.
You know, and I mean, that's really what it is, you know, and kind of next is almost, I'd call it a first cousin to a farmer's
Farmers
market.
market.
And that's what they call a CSA.
Yeah. Somebody's going to break that down because I
Okay.
don't think I understand.
Right.
CSA.
Well, it's called community supported agriculture.
Okay.
Okay, that's what the CSA stands for. Okay, and it says that for over 25 years, and I'm reading on localharvest.org. Anyway, have become popular ways for consumers to buy local, seasonal food direct from a farmer. And here are the basics of how it works. A farmer offers a certain number of shares or memberships or subscription, however you want to phrase that,
Right.
to the public. Now, typically, the share consists of a box of vegetables or a bag of vegetables, whatever, or other farm products may be included. But consumers purchase a share and in return receive the box, bag, basket of seasonal produce each week throughout the farming season. Okay. The arrangement creates several rewards for both the farmer and the consumer. And in real short brief, the advantage for the farmer is they get to spend time marketing the food early in the year before their 16-hour days in the field begin.
I got you.
So they've got all that done. They receive payment early in the season, which helps the farm's cash flow. So it allows them the money through that. And they have an opportunity to get to know the people who eat the food they grow. So it's relationship
building.
Right. Now for the consumer, it's eat ultra fresh food with all the flavor, vitamin benefits. Okay.
Nutrient dense.
Right. Get exposed to new vegetables and new ways of cooking. Usually get to visit the farm at least once a season. So you get to go out and see this food being grown.
Right.
Find that kids typically favor food from their farm, even veggies they've never known to eat because they're invested. It's theirs, right? It's not just, so there's a thing there. And here's one of the key things. Develops a relationship with the farmer who grows their food and learn more about how food is grown. Right? And there's a ton of variations and risks and stuff, and there's an important concept with the model that takes arrangement beyond the usual commercial transaction, and it's the notion of shared risk. Members pay up front for the whole season, and then the farmers have to do their best to provide an abundant box each week. So, it's kind of a... they're in it together.
You're right. Yeah, to me, it's almost like buying stock in a commodity.
Right.
But we know this commodity is... We see the tea leaves. We know it's going to be rising up and more valuable.
Right. And I would say, this can be from as small as the family unit where, you've got one that's got land and they're growing this stuff. And so the family pitches in, money to help this grow, and then they get returned back on it. I mean, that's just the smallest unit to where, you might have one that grows enough that they service, in the tens or 20s, or some even in the hundreds and thousands. I mean, of people they serve. And, I wish I could, it's Recuse. I cannot remember how to pronounce that guy. He's out in central Oklahoma out there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. And,
I remember that guy.
He had a CSA and he had been prepaid for all that and all this stuff. And somebody or something killed his crops.
Right.
And so all those people that had invested their money lost money and weren't getting their groceries, and he's losing his potential business, his potential income from that, as well as this guy was really genuinely upset because he was not able to provide to these people what they needed and wanted.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. He sees the direct consequences. So he's more likely to work harder to not let that happen, unlike stocks.
And one of the things that I noticed in that was not only his customers rallied around him to help, pull
him back,
but then also other farms in the area, other people who knew his stuff, giving him stuff to, to help do that. And it was just like, it pulled together this community. But they were as invested in what happened. Those people who had paid, for their boxes or bags, were super invested in that.
Right. And I tell you what that really shows me is that building these relationships, you become a part of a food community.
Right. It's that where your food came from. It's personal to you because you're invested in it.
Right. You are a known entity in the food community. Right. So if peanut butter hits the fan, they probably won't forget about you because they're going to probably rally together, just like they rallied together around that farmer.
And, and they, and it was really a community thing. And I mean, I read through the comments on that, and it was, there were people that were just, he was distraught. It wasn't even an anger; it was distraught because he really thought he was going to lose his farm because they thought the soil might have been contaminated, and the results came back that it wasn't. So he's able to replant. Praise God! But so that's the CSA, and that's kind of what it is. And It's not as big as the farmers market, but it is something that is worth pursuing, for people as a means to have food
Right.
when they don't have space to grow it themselves, or
Right.
they
I
don't have the
think-
time even to grow it themselves.
Sounds like a win-win
It is.
solution.
It is,
Yeah.
because I'll be honest with you folks. I am, you get a guy out there that's growing at that level, listen, this ain't his only income,
Right.
I mean, this ain't his, but he depends on that. It costs money to grow in that volume,
Right.
and it takes time, and he's putting his labor and his sweat and his effort into it, and now you're helping this guy, and his farm survive by investing in it with him, and you're getting to reap the rewards.
Right.
You know.
And for people who want to know how to find this, there are websites out there that
Right.
that you can put in your location, and it kind of tells you where your local CSA is.
Right.
And not only that, if you don't find those websites, just
Right.
do a Google search for Google,
Right.
a CSA
Near
nearby.
local.
I was going to say,
farmers
Yeah.
right where I'm at, right
Oh,
where
yeah.
I was reading from,
That's a good idea.
localharvest.org.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then just / put CSA. And down there after that little article, there's a find a local CSA tab.
Okay.
So,
Right.
again, they're
What
going
was the name of that again?
that was www.localharvest.org.
Did you say www
W-
localharvest.org?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we got that. But anyway, so yeah.
Fun fact, since y'all brought it up, did
Uh-huh.
y'all see that this guy going around the college campuses offering, I think, like $1,000 for any of the students to get this question right? And it was like, it wasn't just any college. They were going to, your elite colleges, Harvard, Yale, and all that. And the simple question was, what does WWW stand for? And almost none of the students could answer it.
What's the 3 W's, right?
I was shocked. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know. I guess I am getting old.
Right.
No, you're not.
Are you saying you don't know?
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving on,
Right.
just recently I came across this shopping guide.
Right. I've been hearing about it.
And, yeah, I know you've been hearing about it. Josh got one. I got one.
Dan got one.
Dan got one.
Everybody got one but Ryan.
Ryan didn't get one. But this is what it is right here. It is the Weston A. Price 2023 shopping guide.
Right.
Okay, you might well say, okay, what's so important about that? Well, maybe you don't have a connection with a local farmer,
Right.
and or maybe you would like to be able to see if you can get some of that stuff, maybe even delivered to your doorstep. Not really sure that all about what that's in here, but I'm just going to read kind of the inside pamphlet because I think
Okay.
that they probably say it better than I could as to what they're about.
Okay.
Anyway, it says the Wide Traditions Diet for Healthy Families. Good health begins with plants and animals raised in healthy ways on mineral-rich soil with meat, eggs, milk products, fish, grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables that are packaged and processed in ways that preserve and enhance their naturally occurring nutrients. Good health also requires avoiding food that are devoid of nutrients or that can do us harm. Food like refined sweeteners, industrial liquid vegetable oils, partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, modern soybean limitation foods, and additives like MSG, hydrolyzed protein, and artificial sweeteners, and by avoiding the overuse of white flour. So, what does this book do? This book is designed to serve as a guide for shopping in supermarkets and health food stores. We have provided phone numbers, or when phone numbers is not available, internet addresses for items available primarily by mail order. General guidelines and specific brand names are listed for each of those categories. All right, so one of the things that they've done at Weston A. Price is that people tell them about their products.
Right.
And if they meet their guidelines, then they get listed in this 2023 shopping guide by
Right.
Weston A. Price. Now, I was out there and, been learning about nutrient-dense foods and the
Right.
importance of that in our own health. and Joe. Oh my gosh, I forgot his name. Joe.
Starts with an S.
Yeah, starts with an S.
Salatin.
Salatin. Thank you, Joe Salatin. All right. So Joe Salatin is kind of where I came across it because they have a podcast that's out
Right.
there, and I kind of found out about that, and that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, so much stuff gets taken out of food,
Right.
just through the processes that it
Right.
goes through. And so if you can get it, and if these organizations, I say organizations, farms, producers, whatever, are meeting a certain criteria of that healthier food, and I mean, I remember you reading through some of that stuff to me, and
Right.
it is literally broken down by category, and it is a pretty thick pamphlet. And there's direct contact with these people, so you can find them, and you can find somebody in your area or somebody who will ship to you,
Right.
and you can get this stuff that you might not have available, or at least you can make a contact where you've got something coming in, and it's just one more way that you can order direct.
Right. From a
and
farmer.
from the
Yeah.
farmer, and cut out all the middlemen, the wholesaler, and everybody else.
Right.
And so you should, at least in theory, save some money, and some places not, maybe, I don't know, but the thing is you're cutting out middlemen and you're getting it directly from a farmer.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. Ultimately, the best for that this segment would be to know who your local farmer is,
Absolutely.
and be within a bicycle ride of that person providing that product.
Right.
Oh yeah.
This could be out of your community, especially if it's a mail order
Right.
situation.
But
there's
is
a lot of
one
people.
step out of taking yourself out of the
Right,
chain right now.
That's correct.
Right. And it's, like I said, depending on where you're at and depending on where they are, they may be local to you. You may be able to find a local person
Yeah,
there.
that's right.
But the main thing is like I said, it's a step in the right direction to cut out a step in the chain. It's taking
Right.
one more link,
Another link out of the chain. Right.
and so super important. And the fact that there's that kind of information out there where they have a criteria
Right.
to get listed in there means you're going to weed out a lot of people who are using methods that wouldn't be considered
Right.
good in that.
And one of the things that I like about it is that that this falls in line too with the way people buy things these days.
Right. Yeah.
And even though I really am a big advocate for developing it in your local market,
Right.
but if for some reason that's not your jam, check them out. We're going to leave a link in the subscription below. And now I think in order to get the online copy of it, it's like $5.99
Yeah, it's like something digital.
like that. But what I did, I think it's $5.99 for one of these also, unless you buy 10. If you buy 10, then you get them for $10.
So then buy 10 and share them with your friends.
And share them with your friends and your brother.
Right. Share them with your brother. No doubt about it.
All right,
Well,
brother.
listen.
Hang on. I'm going to give this to my brother right now,
Right,
just so he
okay.
can't say I never gave him one.
Okay. I got it. Right here it is. He gave it to me.
Yep.
Okay. Put it right there on my notebook. All right. Hey, well, listen, folks, we've talked about, ways that, shorten. We talked about the short-term preps to get yourself going, things to make sure you can survive it. We've talked about direct ways where you can go to farmers markets. But listen, the most direct way is to
It's
garden.
gardening.
Is to grow it yourself,
Yeah, absolutely.
but
It's the slowest way.
it's
to
the
get
slowest. It's the most time consuming. And one of the things about, the prep supplies and being able to buy, from a local is that you can store that up. You can get that stuff and it gives you time if you're able to, and you want to, if you got that thing, it gives you time to begin to get your stuff going.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what, the prepping portion of it is to buy time.
Right.
That's why it's how much time do you need till you can get to the step of being self-sufficient.
Right. The other thing with that, we talked about, it's the most secure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the most secure,
It takes the longest,
but it's the most secure.
but it's the most secure.
And once you get that first one in and you kind of learn, you're going to get better at it and you're going to be able to grow more.
Right.
And, I've said before on the show, there's nothing better than a fruit or a vegetable that you grew yourself.
Right.
It tastes better for some reason.
And there's no one in between you
Right. It is.
and
it is,
that vegetable or
right.
that
It's
animal.
just,
It's like that old saying when you paid off your mortgage, the grass feels softer under your
Right.
feet.
Looks a little greener. Right. The bed's a little softer that night.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and I mean, so I mean, it's real important. And I mean, listen, in going to those CSAs and going to those farmers markets, you're going to meet people who can tell you how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
They will work with you, even though I mean, yeah, they're selling you stuff. Most of them will tell you, "Hey, how'd you grow that? How'd you grow that squash so big?"
Yeah. They
Oh,
love
well,
to
hey,
talk about the thing.
boom, and they'll tell you,
Yeah.
and it's full of resource information. But you know, so I mean, as you go into gardening, whether it's a greenhouse or pot container gardening, or you know, like the microgreens and that type of thing, where you can grow them anywhere. There's just a lot of different avenues that you can grow your own food, which is the ultimate no food supply chain.
Right.
You know, and
Right. And
May I-
before anyone says, "Oh, I don't have the land to do it," 5-gallon buckets.
it's it.
That's it.
We've talked about that here on the show.
You can
We've
grow a
done.
lot of things in
I
those
think
buckets.
You met who was it?
Andy.
Yeah, Andy.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
that
Oh,
has
Con-
that.
wicking pots and all that stuff,
Yeah,
and
the wicking
container gardening.
Right.
You know, and I
Wicking tubs.
this is my second year at it. I'll be honest with you. I've got to go bigger in the containers. I've got to do something different for next year.
Yeah.
But you know, I've had tomato. I've had
Right.
I had one cucumber. I've had some strawberries. I've had some things out of my little container gardens in my backyard that literally takes up about a 6x8 amount of space on the ground.
Right.
So I mean,
Right. And may I just also back up a little bit, and this is also true under farming CSAs
Right.
also, and that is how you can and you store your food
Right.
is really important here too, because that's one of the things, you know, you might ask yourselves, okay, I get these vegetables, maybe it's going to last me a week,
right.
you know, and it'll do me for now, but what I don't want to garden, but how do I prepare for when that fresh food isn't growing? And you guys are probably saying, we already know that, just move on. But some people, maybe they don't. So
Right.
I'm just
Well,
mentioning
you know,
it for,
yeah, go ahead.
for people who want to know how they bridge the gap, if you will.
Yeah, these three things are pieces of the puzzle, and they all work together for
Right.
a reason.
Mhm.
So, like, say you made it to step 3, and you have your own garden and everything. Well, what happens when something isn't produced? A storm comes in, takes it out. Well,
Right.
that's what step 1 was for, the
Mhm.
prepping.
Right.
So, you know,
Right.
you need all 3 really for, you know, lifelong survival.
Right, lifelong control of that, and you talked about that, bro. There's, I mean, canning and preserving, and I have learned a little bit, not enough, but I'm going to find out. I got to ask this question. You know, the difference. You know, there's this thing called dry canning, and then there's the regular canning process. So there's different ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But then the one that got my attention, and we talked about this earlier in show prep,
Right.
was fermenting.
Yeah.
That's a new. I mean, okay. Listen, I knew about fermented cabbage, i.e.,
kimchi.
which I anyway.
Love kimchi.
But anyway, I can't get past it. But you know, there's different things, and kind of find out, you know, there's a lot of things you can ferment,
Yeah.
and there's a reason you should.
Right. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's for supporting a good gut
Right.
biome.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I used to love fermented potatoes. You know, I used to drink vodka all the time back in the day.
Well, that wasn't what I meant, but okay.
You know,
Found it
it's
better.
different time of my life, but you know, I supported fermented food.
Fermented beverages.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I understood, you know, I mean, there, you know, some of the ways people used to do things to ferment that were for more, how should we say, medicinal purposes.
Right.
But I mean, but you can do this with your food in a way that it becomes healthier, you know, and there is some foods that you got to can and some foods you can ferment. And I mean, folks, go out there. Like I said, YouTube is amazing. You know, if nothing else, go to Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. I mean, I'll send them over there because I mean, they do an awesome thing about fermenting.
Yeah. They talk
If you
about
really want to understand fermenting, and
there's a lot of people out
a
there.
lot of people out there. I just say them
Yeah.
because I like them. But
Salt.
you know, salt is king.
Yeah. There's a reason why it was used as currency for thousands of years. It's because you can salt will preserve meat.
Right.
Preservatives. Right.
So I mean, you know, that's it. We've given, you know, I mean, that's 3 pretty comprehensive steps.
Right.
You know.
And that's step by step.
And
And
that
that's
was-
where we
I mean,
would
we were-
start, then
Right.
we'd move on to the
Yeah.
second one and
Start
on
with
to the
prepping.
third one.
You know, which
Right.
granted, you can start with prepping, and while you're working on the prepping, you can move right on to that farmer's market because I mean they're in season right now for one.
Yeah.
So you can start and move right on to the farmers markets and begin to find a CSA. And hey, listen, if you can't find one of those things, be the change. I mean, you might not be able to do a CSA, you might not be able to grow and crop,
Right.
but you can start a farmers market.
Right.
I mean, that begin to resource that out.
Reach out and
You know.
make it happen.
And if you find one, support it. Get
Right.
behind them, find out who's in charge of it and get behind them, help them out.
Right.
Because it is work on somebody,
Right.
But,
Okay, so before we wrap this up, I just want to remind everybody that there were two things that we're going to provide a link in the description below. One was the list that Josh was talking about, how to stockpile your food. And the second one was the link over to Weston A. Price's 2023
Right.
shopping guide. So I just want you guys to look in the description below to find that if you're interested.
right. Well, listen, I've got one thing before we wrap this up, and this thought came to me today. And honestly, as I was driving over here to the studio, and this came back, and I'll use well, never mind, I won't. Pre-pandemic, I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Or pre-pandemic, or whatever you want to call it. Okay. 2019. Think back to 2019 and 2020 of what life was like. I mean, you literally could go anywhere. It was, life was pretty free, I guess you might say. We were just cruising along in life. Economy was good. Everything's going great. And then that thing happened. Early 2020.
The name that shall not be
The
mentioned.
Shame Hunter Mission. Who got locked down? Who got locked down in that? Everybody. Churches, schools, sports seasons were canceled. I mean, you couldn't leave your house in places. I mean, it was like if you were on the street, somebody was pulling you over to find out what you were doing. I mean, it was
In some places.
in some places,
Right.
I mean, I had a letter in my truck that identified me as essential personnel to the job that I had.
Right.
So if I got pulled over,
Yeah.
all right.
You were the hand.
Oh yeah, I did too. It was my pocket constitution.
Well, right. But aside from that, okay. But I'm thinking about it. Everybody got locked down. I mean, like I said, all those people, and you couldn't go anywhere. But who didn't get locked down? There's two things that didn't get locked down. Big box stores,
Correct.
centralized food didn't get locked down.
Correct.
You couldn't go to church, you couldn't go to school, you couldn't go to a concert, but you could go to the world's largest retailer and walk around in close proximity to all kinds of people.
Certain protests were allowed.
Certain protests were allowed. But mom and pop got shut down.
Right.
That mom and pop store got shut down.
Yeah.
Who
Think-
did?
Think about that for just a
Right.
moment.
The little guys got shut down. So why? Centralized food supply. That
Right.
food supply chain that is so huge.
Right.
Well, they let that go and in fact encourage that.
Right.
But lock down mom and pop. Put mom and pop out of business in a lot of cases.
That's correct.
But you want to know who else didn't get locked down?
Tell me.
Farmers.
Farmers did not get locked down.
I mean, they might not have been able to left their farm,
Right.
but they still had food.
Good point.
They still had their stuff. They could still raise their cattle. They could still raise their crops. They still had food.
So what you're saying, bro, is that the people here, you, me, and Josh, we would not get locked down if we were gardening in our backyard. Is that your point?
That's kind of my point, that if you're growing your own food and you've got your food security in hand and you have broken free from the bonds of the global food supply chain,
Right.
you are far less affected
Right.
by this.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll point out here is that, in the beginning of this, we promised to show you ways that you could break that food supply chain, which we've done, by the way.
Yes.
However, I'm not promoting that you don't have to go buy certain things from the big box stores.
Right.
Not what we're saying, but what we are saying
It's
is
dependence.
that your full dependence, especially when it comes to food and your food supply.
Right.
Right.
Right. It's about breaking the dependent chain. You're not chained to it.
Right.
You have a resource for your food that is independent of that.
Right.
Right. I mean, what are we really talking about here? And why do we talk about this? And it really boils down to freedom. So is someone really free, truly, truly free, if they're reliant on something else, somebody else?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's what this attack is. It's about our loss of freedom. Our ultimate goal is to be as free as possible. Well, if you follow these steps that we're talking about, that's how you get there.
Right.
And we're fighting globalists for control and for freedom.
Right.
You know, most people just think, oh, you know, it's just about, you know, where do you buy your food at and all that. And that's not what this is about.
No.
It's about freedom.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you said the word freedom, because I'm going to do a side note, because this is the appropriate time
Right.
to
I was
do
going
it.
to ask you about your T-shirt.
Y'all digging my shirt?
Dig
man?
your shirt, man.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
The OUR.
Yeah, you go.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let me stand up right
Yeah.
here.
Oh, you are our.
Right. Yeah. Operation Underground Railroad.
Right.
And most of you people have seen it in the news, or you've heard about it. You may have even went to see it. Well, Operation Underground Railroad is about saving children from sex trafficking.
Right.
And I wanted to bring that to the forefront this week, because it's out in the
public eye.
It's out in the public eye right now, and I just implore
Right.
people, if
You
you
know.
haven't seen it, go see it.
Sound of freedom.
Support these things, because one of the things that touches my heart more than anything is when people harm children.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
You know.
I support them. I'm asking other people to go out and, you know, you can support them in different ways, getting involved with them, but you can go see the movie. That's one way to support them.
Sound of Freedom. You know, go out and check that out. You can search that out.
Right.
I know it's by Angel Studios. I know it's got Jim Caviezel acting in it.
Right.
And yeah, even if that's the way you go support it, but just the fact that it drives the message home, and the fact that there's been so much effort from Hollywood and from the government to suppress this story and to suppress what's going on.
Right.
This is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Right.
The marketing of children for sex.
Right. Did you know that they stated in that movie that it was actually moving into the #1 position, even above drugs?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Right. I was shocked by that, because I didn't think it was that prevalent.
Right.
But also, there's another way that you can support them. If you can't go, or if you've already gone, what I would like you guys to do is go out there and pay it forward. They've got a pay it forward button to where you can buy other people's tickets.
Right.
I've done it, and you can take advantage of some of mine. If you want to go out there, I brought my family with me.
Yeah, if you can't be the one who metaphorically wraps the rope and the millstone around these people's necks, the people that do these things, then at least support those who can.
Right. You know, and I mean,
Thank you, Josh. That's
a great reference, because it's better that a millstone be tied around their neck and be cast in the sea than to harm one of these.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I will give a shout out to one more person that's involved in a similar thing. He's gotten involved with it because as a sports guy, I like him. Tim Tebow Foundation has gotten behind this. They've got a thing out about this, and they're supporting a lot of this, of what's going on, and making awareness about it. So you can go check that out. You can go check out Operation Underground Railroad, Sound of Freedom movie. Go out and check it out. I have not been able to make it, but my plan is to go this week before it disappears. Listen, folks, this movie has beat Disney. It's beat everybody else.
Right.
It's out there.
Indiana Jones.
You're right. I mean,
beat them out.
It beat them out at the box office. This message matters. So go get it. All right. Thank you, bro, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Listen, folks, tonight, here's what we got to say. If you like the type of content we cover here on the Farm to Table Direct Show, hit that subscribe button right down on the bottom. Smash it. Give us the thumbs up.
Share it.
Share it to your friends. Share it to people. Get the word out. Set it out if you really enjoy our content. If you find it valuable, we try to bring you the most relevant information concerning our food supply and preparing for the unexpected. You know, I didn't bring them tonight, but I wish I had my bolt cutters to break the chains.
Break those chains.
That's it. Get
Break
free.
those chains.
Josh brought it up about freedom. That is your only true freedom, is that you can feed yourself and provide food for your family.
Right on.
All right. So, as we always like to say here on the Farm to Table Direct Show, prepare for the unexpected and keep it local. All right.
You brought up Tebow. I know he's our brother in Christ, but I'm still a little salty about that national champion.
No humans were harmed in the production of this podcast.